Good evening and welcome to the Bloggers Magazine on I-24 News, where we try to bring you a different perspective on news stories as well as social trends. With me in the studio are two bloggers, Keshet Bachan from the XX Factor. Hello, Keshet.
Hi.
And Daniel Roth of allthesedays.org. So in 2 words, Daniel, what's your blog about?
As it says on the front page, it's reporting words and images on Israel, Palestine, and the global movement for equity and justice.
All right, that sounds very interesting. And yours, Keshet?
I blog about feminist issues, women's rights, girls' rights, and whatever takes my fancy.
All right, sounds interesting. So to get us started, here are 3 short stories that recently caught our attention.
For the promotion of the Terror in the Park project during the upcoming holiday of Halloween, Park Asterix has sent out invitations in the form of obituaries to influential bloggers. The aim of the operation? To die laughing in the family. A marketing campaign which is definitely not the taste of the blogosphere. Israeli hummus was in the spotlight in Budapest, Tel Aviv's twin city. Hundreds of people attended the 16th Israeli festival in the Hungarian capital. Among other activities, the public was invited to sample from a giant 50-kilo plate of hummus, the equivalent of 400 normal servings. The record for the biggest plate of hummus is still under dispute between Lebanon and Israel. An authentic international ambassador of Lebanese rock, the band Chimera has come out with a new album, The Harbinger of Doom, which reflects a variety of influences. One of the rare bands to make a name for itself abroad, Chimera overcomes obstacles and embodies the hope of a new generation.
So with all of my love to hummus, I cannot talk about the promotion through obituaries. Keshet, do you think that's a way to do it?
I think it's tasteless, and it's really PR run amok. Nothing is sacred anymore. Just this morning, an Israeli sperm bank used the photo of 2 children who were murdered last week by their father in order to advertise their merchandise, claiming that if you get impregnated by a donated sperm, you don't have to worry about the father of your children becoming a murderer.
That is
very tasteless.
Horrible. Daniel, I'm sorry, do you have anything to say to that? Because I'm just shocked.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think to some degree in a capitalist world, everything's commodified, and to some degree you have to expect that tasteless advertising is going to come out of that. And this, I think, is among the less tasteless things that I've seen in this spectrum of tastelessness.
Right.
Making fun of death. But
There's always something more to get to, but we've got to move on, and we're moving on to zombie movies that are known all over the world for combining dread, horror, and humor. Israeli director Eitan Gafni took this familiar combination and added a Middle Eastern twist in the form of Israeli troops and Hezbollah fighters. The result is Cannon Fodder, a film unlike any other. Danny Swibel met with the director.
Get outside.
Blood, big calibers, and bloodthirsty mutants. No doubt Cannon Fodder has all the characteristics of a zombie movie, and here is the director.
Eitan Gafni, director of Cannon Fodder.
Graduate from the Tel Aviv University in cinema, Ethan simply is an expert on these movies that appeared in the 1930s. So with his diploma in one hand and a camera in the other, the choice of his first movie seemed obvious.
I used to love horror films as a kid, and also like really stupid action films like Chuck Norris, Van Damme, Stallone, all that stuff. So I always thought to myself, wouldn't it be fun to put zombies against Israeli soldiers and make it an action film?
With an accepted B-movie style, Cannon Fodder collects the prizes he won in specialized festivals throughout the world, thanks to his freshness maybe, but also to an uncommon scenario.
It started like a small film, but turned out to be a bit bigger than that. But the essence is still the same. It's zombies versus soldiers, make it an action film, funny and you know, a bit of horror, a bit disgusting, just like a zombie film should be.
Soldiers, certainly, but the scenario got carried away when the Israeli soldiers and members of Hezbollah form an alliance to fight an army of zombies together. Then, is Ethan Gaffney's first movie inescapably political?
We kind of don't take sides, you know? Like, every left-wing person who saw the film thought it was right-wing, and every right-wing person thought it was left-wing. Because we're not really saying this is good or this is not good or choose that side. We're just saying this is the way it is, and we should all work together because there's really no other way. I mean, someday something worse will come.
For Ethan, beyond the message, the importance remains.
It's fun. It made it fun. Fun film. That's the key word.
The zombie movie is a specific type within its own right in the Middle East, here more than anywhere else.
Israeli films should talk about violence, should display violence on screen. Not because it's fun, well, it is fun, but because not showing violence and not talking about violence only makes it worse. It keeps it depressed, you know, under the surface. People don't get violent because of watching horror films. It's the exact opposite.
Shot with fun and with the special spirit of an independent and broke cinema, the path followed by the movie surprises even its own creator. A success explained by a provocative scenario, but also with the nearly childish approach of its author.
So it is a low-budget film. It is an independent film. It offers something bigger than your usual independent, low-budget horror film anyway, but it's just a fun film, nothing more.
So everybody loves zombie movies, of course, and this one seems like a lot of fun, but the hidden message here, I guess, is that we need a common enemy. What do you think, Daniel?
I think that is some of the message in zombie movies all the time. And actually, I think historically speaking, zombies represented consumerism. If you see like Dawn of the Dead, where they hide in a mall, this is the explicit message in this film. But I think here, yeah, the message is that there's always something bigger and badder out there than the enemy you see right in front of you. Mm-hmm. And the enemy you see right in front of you isn't really your enemy. And I think you can see that theme, for example, spoiler alert, in Game of Thrones as well, which deals with some of the same sort of overarching zombie-rific issues. But I think it's actually a really great way of getting the message across. In today's world, I think that also has to do with sort of the movement for environmentalism and sustainability.
That's interesting, because I was thinking, keshet, does the common enemy have to be a fictional one, or can we take something like the environment or like poverty or something like that and make that a common enemy that could bring Israel and its surrounding countries closer together?
I don't know if it's about using words like enemy at all. I mean, this is a comedy. This is a really funny movie. I think the Middle East needs to stop taking itself so seriously. I mean, if you think about it, this conflict has been going on for as long as all of us can remember, really. And maybe it takes a bit of comedy to bring healing, and maybe it takes a bit of self-reflection and laughing at ourselves to, you know, kind of step out of the box that we're all stuck in, and look at it from a different perspective, and look at it from maybe an optimistic, maybe a utopian, maybe a dystopian perspective, and who knows where it's going to go.
Could be, but this could also, one could say that this is some sort of a marketing strategy, because we're, you know, getting headlines. If you put together Israelis and Hezbollah fighting together, you'll get a headline. Could it be just a marketing?
That is cynical.
Oh, yeah, I have my moments.
It's terribly cynical. The man grew up here. This is what he knows. I expect him to make a movie about what he knows.
Right.
Well, it's look. I think that it deserves the headlines. It's a bold move to make a film like this that's bringing two people who are essentially at war together, even though it's a fictional story. It's telling the story of people facing a common fear that is death and all of the sort of tropes that go along with zombieism. And actually, the best comedy deals with the deepest fears, I think, and kind of draws those out together. And I think actually what the product of something like this could be is perhaps that an Israeli and Lebanese audience one day will sit down and watch this together.
Right. So I could talk about zombie movies all day, but again, we have to move move on. And our next subject is pretty interesting. Perhaps as Israelis, we shouldn't be surprised, since people often think that there's nothing here but soldiers and camels. But it turns out that despite the civil war that is raging in Syria, Damascus is still enjoying a thriving nightlife. More in the following report.
In the Sha'alan neighborhood of Damascus, when night falls, this is what happens. And the atmosphere is turned up a notch as the DJ plays the latest popular hit, a tribute to General Maher. Understand, that's Bashar al-Assad's brother. He's heading the 4th Division, which is in charge of Damascus. As the battles rage on with mortar shells and missile support, these pro-Assad youngsters refuse to cower in the darkness. So, when night falls, they take to clubbing or karaoke. In Damascus, nightlife consists of no more than a dozen establishments that remain open despite everything, with an undertone of shamefacedness for having fun while the dead are being counted in 6 figures.
People come here to dance, sing, and have fun. The situation is very bad, so here a person can enjoy a change of mentality.
On the other side of town, in another political mood, is the Bulgarian Culture Center in the Malki neighborhood. There, in the center of town, there's dancing too, but it's salsa. And these lessons in foreign dance boast a full house.
We started teaching 2 years ago when the war started. It's a campaign of defiance against the war. Often while we're dancing here, we can hear the sounds of war outside, but we continue dancing in order to defy war by means of art and love.
In some corners of Syria, to the sound of bombing, nightlife has unexpectedly exploded. The present club scene in Damascus, involving a change of venue for some people, is also a way of asserting the love of life.
So, Keshet, can people find a way to celebrate regardless of where they are, regardless of circumstances?
I'm sure they can. Question is,
will they?
No, should they?
Should they?
Should they? I mean, I'm not surprised with their cavalier attitude, considering these are supporters of the autocratic Assad regime. And when you think about the way that their leaders have been acting, Asma Assad, this time last year, decided to go on a shopping spree, and she spent £260,000 buying furniture, £10,000 on a dining room table, and £11,000 on a rug. So I guess massacring your people puts you in the mood for some retail therapy.
Must be really nice stuff, too. Daniel, what do you think? Do you think that... Go ahead.
I think there's a lot going on here. I think war is confusing for everybody. And so the answers to this kind of question are confusing and chaotic. I think, the median age in Syria is rather young, somewhere in the early 20s. So this is not unsurprising to me as someone who, when I was in my early 20s, almost anything was answered by partying. And with 100,000 dead, with 2 million refugees and 7 million displaced people, these are enormous and frightening numbers of death and destruction that for some people, they're just going to answer it in the only way they know how.
Well, Keshet, at the risk of sounding super cynical again, could this be a well-organized propaganda by the Assad regime, these pictures that we see out of Damascus?
I think it's in very poor taste, and I'm not sure if it is propaganda, that it's serving him well at all.
Well, showing that normal life is still ongoing.
Go on.
Well, I think you're right that the message wouldn't be served, because when people like us look at this, we're surprised and say, well, how is it that people are partying in the face of death and war and destruction?
I suspect they should be demonstrating, but they can't.
Instead, they do the cha-cha. Thank you. Every week we ask our bloggers to bring us something that may have escaped us in the social sphere. Let's begin with you, Daniel. What you got for us?
So JewSchool.com is it's a website. It brings writers together and thinkers who are talking about Judaism in a revolutionary way. Its promise is to keep the revolution alive in Judaism and talk about everything from the Beastie Boys and their relationship to the Talmud to why the Israeli left is silent in the face of peace talks now.
Right. That sounds very interesting. I'll check it out later. What about you, Keshet?
The Good Men Project is a progressive men's magazine, which is news stories from the frontier of modern manhood. It talks about anything from gender, fatherhood, sex, politics, war, anything at all, but from a really progressive masculine perspective. And all the men should check it out.
Sounds interesting as well. All right. I'd like to thank you both, Keshet Bachan and Daniel Roth, for coming and joining me today here. And I'd like to thank you for watching as well. Feel free to contact us through Twitter or Facebook or on our website, i24news.tv, and join us again next week.